Government creates monopolies. Capitalism does not. One of the common misconceptions economics teachers and etc. in schools promote is that capitalism generates monopolies. This is not true. What basically happens when a monopoly takes place is that someone acquires controlling influence in a particular field such that others cannot get in and compete. Now, in a pure capitalist system, which you have to have no regulation and no authority telling the industry what will the standards be. Now you can say, well, about those train bearers or the steel industry barons and etc. Guess where their monopolies came from? Their monopolies came from them working with the government. In fact, by working with the government, they could have had and having government establish rules and regulations. They can shut out other companies and ensure the safety of their monopoly. Perfect example would be this current healthcare bill. This current healthcare bill will create monopolies. Why? Because the government is going to set standards that many companies, small companies, cannot participate in. The big insurance companies, which are already meeting the standards that they're telling the government to set, will basically lock it out. And the government has to approve your company first and foremost before you're allowed to be, before it's considered a legitimate insurance company, and thus you're free from fine or jail time. Likewise, in the past, with the steel industry and the train industry, they had regulations that required train tracks to be so many feet long, where the train tracks would go, how many stops they would have, etc. Now, is this avoidable? Can we avoid government regulation creating monopolies? I don't know if we can. Let's use the computer operating system, Windows. The government was put in the awkward position that they are the biggest purchaser and biggest buyer in the United States of any goods. As such, they have immense influence on creating monopolies. And when they decide to buy a product or use a particular computer program format, they essentially create the standard for the rest of the economy. Because if you're not a government program, you're going to have to necessarily work with the government program, so you're going to have the same standards that the federal government has. So some bureaucrat somewhere decided that Windows was the best operating system for government to use. And as a result, it spread like wildfire. Now Windows is a monopoly. Other computer operating systems are not given the same access, and most of them have fallen to the wayside or disappeared. Now, is this good, or are monopolies good or bad? Well, depends on how you think about it. Monopolies can be extremely good in the sense that it does standardize things. There are certain things that one company or one operating system is going to do. So you know that you don't have to have 20 different operating systems to run the software. Someone brings something up, chances are you can run it because there's really only one operating system. But that is a monopoly. Is it bad? Yes, because it cuts out other operating systems which might actually be better than this operating system. Newer operating systems and etc. that are not based on Windows structure, they have a very hard time breaking in because of the standardization and a monopoly created through the government of Windows. Now this is true not just for Windows, but for pretty much anything from automobiles, fuel supplies, etc. All monopolies can trace a direct link to government involvement, government regulations and government codes and government purchases. So, next time you hear someone say, oh, without government we would have all these monopolies, and that's a lie. Government creates the monopolies. In a pure capital system, there is nothing to enforce a standard of anything on anything. In other words, there's no law saying that whatever you make has to be compatible with this. No, whatever material you submit to the government has to be compatible with that. No one is doing that. No one's saying steel has to have a certain amount of strength. No one has to say, in a pure capitalist system, people could produce whatever they wanted to produce, and the generation and people just buy whatever they thought was useful. That doesn't happen because we really don't live in a pure capitalist society. We have a government with regulations, and in fact, any government you have is going to have regulations. The real goal of capitalists is not that of the anarchists with no regulation. The real goal is very limited regulations so that we have as few monopolies as humanly possible. Thank you very much. Have yourself a good day, and God bless.